Well, if 2020 taught us anything, it was having access to a good laptop was absolutely critical for so many areas of our digital life. And one company that I kept in touch with during the year, as we heard about supply chain challenges and those kinds of things, but also new models that were coming through, was Acer. Today, I thought we'd talk with Robert Corkel from Acer. He's basically in charge of the marketing and communications for Acer here in Australia. Talk about some of their key models that they have in market at the moment, but also touch on whether we'll actually be able to get the model we want, because we want to make sure it's going to be in the stores. Robert, good morning to you.
Hi, Charlie. Nice to see you again, and thank you for having me on.
No, look, always good to have a chat. We did sit down last year. We did talk about supply chain issues. That was not just something that was present with Acer. It was present with all sorts of different tech companies all across the planet. You guys did pretty well getting stock into the store channels. Has that sort of flattened out or settled down, so to speak, as we've arrived in 2021?
Well, honestly, from our perspective, we will still see some supply challenges in 2021. However, in our core lines, we don't see that being as much of an issue. I guess where the world issue kind of lies is essentially the demand continues. So work from home, learn from home continues to be an important issue, and we have obviously ramped up our supply to handle that, and within country as well. The devices that we're obviously going to be talking about today, we have really good supply of. So we can be rest assured that this year it'll settle down a little bit more.
Well, that's going to be good. I remember standing in a consumer electronics store in around March or April last year, looking around, just going, "Wow, this is the most barren I've seen a computer electronics section since pack-up day at CES." Anyway, so I wanted to talk something close to my heart, the Swift 5. This is the first product I wanted to go through with you today, because I'm often asked, what products do I actually purchase for myself, either my business or my family? This one I purchased for my 10-year-old daughter, the Swift 5. She was requiring a BYOD device for school. She is 9 going on 10 this year, and I chose it because it's thin, it's light, but it wasn't, I put it into the more affordable category as well. So Swift 5, tell us about that device.
Yeah, so the beauty of the Swift 5 is exactly what you just touched on, that it's thin and it's light. So we're talking 1 kilogram, less than 15 mils in terms of thickness. So that as a features by itself is enough. But what's beautiful about it is obviously you can see the screen behind me, full HD, it's 14 inches, which is kind of the size that people want to see these days, and touch screen. So it's got everything you want. Kind of taking a step back in terms of when we designed the Swift 5 and what we were looking to achieve, we kind of focus at Acer a little bit around the lifestyle, and because we believe that the PC kind of sits at the core of an individual's lifestyle. So your daughter, for example, she's obviously very mobile, going to school. She probably wants to use it out and about. So we've got to make sure that it's obviously wakes up really quickly. It's got long battery life. So obviously with the Swift 5, we're talking up to 17 hours of battery life.
Well, on that, they're not allowed to charge them up at school, Robert. I mean, I think in emergencies they'll allow them to, but the feeling that I've gotten from the school is that they'd prefer that they just run all day with that single charge from overnight the night before. And I'm finding that my daughter's coming home and I'm checking the battery levels. There's still sort of 75% to go. Now, obviously, they're not using them in every class, but they are using them in classes. And so to be able to have that level of power surety is a good thing for them.
No, absolutely. No doubt about that at all. And that was obviously a key to it as well. And what we want to obviously ensure in terms of then charging, so when she does bring it home to charge as well, is that it charges quickly. So within 30 minutes, you can get decent battery life again back on that device as well.
The thinness, the lightness, usually we see those features in more expensive models. I sort of lent to this model because it was more into that affordability level, but it had enough power for her to use for this year, next year, the year after, at least. That's what I was that was the purchasing decision that I went through. Obviously, that was critical in the way you designed this one.
Yeah, no, certainly, and that's why I'm really passionate about working for Acer, because we're really committed to delivering full-featured devices. It's got all the connectivity, it's got all the ports you need, but at a level and a price level that's attractive. So that particular device is Intel EVO certified, which is only a handful of devices in the world that have that capability, which means it's ticking a lot of boxes in terms of that mobile user and what they need. So as you said, at an affordable price level, that's what I love about Acer.
And it fits in her backpack quite comfortably as well.
Exactly,
Let's talk about something that is a little bit more out of the box with you guys. It's called the ConceptD. It's more, well, I'll let you explain what the ConceptD is and who you designed it for.
Yeah, so probably going back about 18 months now, we created a new brand called ConceptD. So obviously, basically the insight that we had was that people were buying our Predator gaming laptops to do creative work, because essentially they needed the power and the grunt that a gaming device would give them. So on that knowledge, we realized obviously there's an opportunity here in that they want aesthetically pleasing devices, naturally, but they want whisper quiet devices, but also a Pantone validated screen. So you're obviously looking at the true color of the work you're working on. So this was a range we'd developed for specifically creators. And creators obviously is a very large and, let's say, growing market as well, and whether it be the individual creator who's a digital nomad, or someone who works in a creative role, so from architects, illustrators, graphic designers, obviously the list goes on. So we wanted to make sure we designed a product that actually fit the needs of, again, that lifestyle and that individual. So that's where we created the ConceptD, a line of products.
Well, on that, and you mentioned there's a lot of people in that market. I mean, there's more and more because people are running side hustles after work hours, for example, or they're passionate about creating something. And it doesn't matter whether it's desktop publishing, it might even be videoing or whatever it is. And I guess what you've done is you've taken the powerful internals of what you would traditionally put in a gaming device, but you just made them look more angry and more pleasant in a well set out studio or home environment, haven't you?
Exactly right. Yeah, no, definitely. And that was key to it as well. It's got to be an aesthetically pleasing device. I've got one myself here, and I look at that matte finish on it every day, and it's really important as well, is how does it actually fit in the environment that a studio is in or someone's home. So those are things we obviously took into account as well as obviously the usability of the device.
Yeah, at the end of the day, when people are in the design business or they have a passion for design and creativity, they kind of lean on things that actually look good. The actual item looks good as much as the requirement for the item to be able to do well what the tasks are they need it to do. So ConceptD, 18 months old. We look forward to seeing what you do with that brand across 2021. The third one I wanted to talk about was the Swift 3X. Now, the Swift 3, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's more thin, it's more light, it's more powerful than your Swift 5. Is that sort of the summation, the short summation of this one?
So not as thin and not as light. So where we're talking about the Swift 5, we're talking that at 1 kilogram and less than 15 mils. We've obviously sacrificed a little bit of that to bring in what we call power thin and light. So the idea that obviously the same mobile individual we're talking about, but maybe is a content creator, maybe has reasons that they would need a little bit more power. So what we actually put inside the Swift 3X is what's called Intel Iris Xe Max graphics. So what we're essentially doing is adding an additional discrete graphics processor. So now that device that's thin and light can incredibly be used for creator and for some light gaming as well. So So it's a little bit more of an all-rounder device. Now you sacrifice half a kilo, I'd say, in weight, but you still obviously keep an incredibly thin and light device as well.
So we're talking an extra kilo, half a kilo. So we're pushing sort of 1.5-ish or just below.
Yeah, 1.4, 1.4.
But you're giving me the ability to now I can, for example, cut videos at 30,000 feet while we're flying somewhere once we're allowed to, for example. I can do that sort of creativity that I want around video or more intense graphics and imagery, but I can do it portably.
Exactly right. No, exactly right. Yeah.
And I guess without this model, someone would be looking at something even heavier, like a more mobile gaming laptop. Did you find that as well? Is that the other reason why the 3X came in?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there'll always be individuals that will look for that too, because we see that as another market that will be coming out is obviously productivity meets gaming. But again, it's really about that individual and how can we ensure that there's a PC that actually suits their needs. And Swift 3X is probably that one that will sit in the sweet spot of a lot of exactly the use case you're talking about.
How far have you pushed it though? I mean, I would see something like this product being purchased by somebody who wants to have the power of a desktop or a moderate desktop at least while they're working at their desk, and then they want to be able to go on the road with it as well. So if you built in functions such as USB-C charging, single cable, engagement with a dock, for example, is that there?
Yeah, so Type-C, Thunderbolt 4, and of course in both those new devices, Wi-Fi 6, so latest Wi-Fi technology, because that's obviously very important on the road as well. And obviously HDMI as well. So we never sacrifice on ports at Acer.
That's you should get to know some of the other brands that are out there. Sure, I won't go any further on that one. So with this extra power, we're talking still, I guess, all-day battery has to be part of it. You've got a little bit more room in the shell of the device. Have you reached a good battery length?
Yeah, so it's actually similar battery. It's still around that 17-hour mark, being that obviously we're assuming people will be doing a little bit more powerful work as well. But yeah, you're right. Obviously a little bit thicker, so a little bit more room as well.
Once you get to 17 hours, I mean, even 12, 14 hours, I mean, you kind of gotten the whole day done, and then you can go home and plug in, right? And if you're USB-C charging, with you, as you mentioned, you got the Thunderbolt 4 in there too. I mean, it can't be too hard to find a desktop dock or somebody else's charger where you are. If you are getting sub 30% on the battery and you're getting a bit nervous, you can usually borrow somebody else's charger because it will fit.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, we see the concept of actually people going on holidays and actually working from their holidays as well, because it is that simple. You just need a monitor and a dock and you can set yourself up anywhere. So absolutely.
All right. So Swift 5, ConceptD, the ConceptD creator, and the Swift 3X. 3 different models to have a look at, all very different, all for very different members of the community, depending on what help they need with their PC device. Robert, good to have a chat to you today to look at what your core range is at the moment, so we can understand a bit better what Acer's position is for 2021. When is the key release point for Acer? Is it Do we see Computex, for example, and announcements made there, announcements made later in the year? What do we see from you guys?
Yeah, Computex will be our major announcement as usual. Being that it's unlikely to be a physical event this year, we will probably do a virtual online event. So we're targeting the end of May or early June. You'll definitely see some big launches then. We've got some really cool ideas coming out. So again, we're focusing on what's that lifestyle and how we can enrich. Definitely May. We also have a second launch period, which is around that September, October period as well. Making sure so our May launch is more getting ourselves ready for for obviously Black Friday, Christmas sort of period, our big releases there. And then our September, October launch is getting ourselves ready for some back to school sort of launches as well. So you'll definitely hear plenty from us this year.
All right, good to have a chat to you, Robert Corkel, Marketing Communications Manager for Acer here in Australia. Great to have you on the line today. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Charlie. Great to be with you.